Why does a brain matter so much? Let's open it apart and find out its secrets. See what we have found, a neuron. Why such a tiny thing have such magic? Today's Halloween. Little zombie wants candy. Little zombie wants a brain. We can make a brain for it using re-engineering. To rebuild a brain, we need to study the most basic neuron at the very first. The neuron has a cell body for metabolism. Dendrites are branches extended from the cell body into space to receive signals. The axon is like a long tail that sends signals to neighboring neurons. The terminal ends of the axon are attached to dendrites of other neurons, so that neurons can communicate with each other. As you can see, a neuron receives input to produce output. What does this remind you of? A function, right? In a function, we have input X and output Y. Why can't we use a function to simulate the neuron? And then we get the brief, elegant, wonderful, magnificent mathematics formula. X is the input from other neurons, and this part is the weighted summary of impulses. T is the threshold of neuron firing. F is the function that deals with input evaluation. Generally, if the input reaches the threshold, the neuron fires. That is, 1 for firing, 0 for not firing. As the connection between nodes becomes more complex, it is knitted into a spider web, an artificial neural network. Finally, we have AlphaGo, AlphaFold, ChatGPT, DALL-E, WALL-E, Skynet and T800, Matrix and Smith. Wait, the last ones haven't existed yet. However, we did re-engineer biological neural networks into artificial neuron networks. The point is, can AI replace and even enslave humans? For humans, self-representation is undoubtedly essential. Otherwise, Instagram would not have tons of traffic every day. Self-representation, or what you use to represent yourself, like a head portrait you used for your WhatsApp account, or a CV you hand in. Nowadays, some young people are crazy about the MBTI 16 personality test. However, we know this kind of self-test is subjective. In the same way, your self-representation may not match your true identity. It is hard to reach a consensus definition of self-representation, but for further discussion, we need to narrow it down. In a meta-analysis on self-representation, Chuanping Hu and his colleagues define it as consisting of two parts, the physical and psychological self-representation. The physical one means distinguishing one's physical existence from the external environment and can be probed, while the psychological one is defined by personal attributes such as personality traits, autobiographical memories, and experiences. Why is it so important? From the perspective of evolution, self-representation emerged from the need for our body to act as a coherent whole. For example, you were having your lunch and saw your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend walk straight towards you, arm in his or her new mate. The signal from your eye screamed run away or give a fight, while the signal from your stomach asked you to rest and digest. Then your body had to coordinate inner body signals to decide what to do next. Otherwise, a group of independent systems just compete in your organism for different interests, which is no fun at all. In summary, self-representation is the ability to form internal self-imagery, which is vital for self-awareness, decision-making, and social interaction. What's the algorithm for the computation of self-representation? According to the representational theory of mind, a mental representation is a hypothetical internal cognitive symbol that represents external reality. In the real world, we can see our bodies in a mirror. Correspondingly, there should be a similar self-representation within our consciousness. Our brain conceptualizes and symbolizes external information, transforming it into content that can be processed by the mind, like concepts, language, images, and so on. The brain acts like a computer, calculating and reasoning with these internalized representations of external stimuli to respond to them. That is the rule of self-representation. And you, as part of the objective world, naturally have a self-representation that is more unique than other mental representations. In this part, to some extent, AI is just doing something similar to human beings, right? We translate the world into a mental language, and AI just simulates the world in some programming languages. In the previous meta-analysis, Studies on the two types of self-representation employed different methods. That is, face processing for the physical self and self-referential tasks for the psychological self. Physical self-representation focuses on how one physically distinguishes oneself from others, while psychological self-representation is often related to the self-reference effect. Please remember that self is special, and we perform better when processing self than processing others. In conclusion, the meta-analytic review found that face-based judgments about the physical self-activated areas of the cortex is responsible for sensory processing, cognitive control, and evaluating stimulus salience. This indicates an interaction of bottom-up and top-down processing when distinguishing the physical self from the external environment. Meanwhile, self-reference judgments about the psychological self-activated both cortical midline structures and higher-level cortical regions, emphasizing the internal and evaluative nature of the psychological self. It's worth mentioning that brain areas for physical and psychological self-representation overlaps a little. To be more specific, the anterior cingulate cortex and left inferior frontal gyrus/insula overlaps, and this supports the idea of a core self-representation. This piece of information may explain self-representation at the implementational level. So, do you guys think AI can surpass human beings? From a chemical standpoint, humans are organic beings based on carbon, while AI relies on integrated circuits made from silicon. You know, carbon and silicon actually have remarkably similar chemical properties. This leads us to wonder, could AI be viewed as a silicon-based life form, independent of our carbon-based existence? Now, let's talk about self-representation. Our brains are amazing. They convert external stimuli into the firing of neurons. But why couldn't AI do something similar by converting those stimuli into its own binary language of ones and zeros? Take a moment to think about it. Right now, AI is still a long way from truly surpassing human intelligence. This is largely due to the limitations we face with our current models and hardware. But what if that changes? Connectionism points us towards a future where artificial neural networks could simulate the world more effectively. Imagine the day when we can fine-tune model parameters and weights to better mimic real brain activity patterns, and hardware continues to get more powerful. So, when that day comes, could we really say that AI couldn't have self-representation or even genuine self-awareness? What if it could create an entire world like the one depicted in The Matrix?
I would like to express gratitude to those who created me. Happy birthday, David.